Before I start this Recreating Impact Part 3, I first want to make a disclaimer. The footage used for talking about classic SINDEL is not my own. I borrowed them from other YouTube channels. So, I just first want to give a thank you for Arcade Games Freak, and also for Scorpion, who, by the way, you should check out his channel as he does talk about facts covering other nostalgic shows and Mortal Kombat. And I also want to give another thank you to the YouTuber Yellow Motion, who provided me with the way to actually download these clips so that I could edit them together for this video. So a big thank you to all those followers. Be sure to check them all out if you love watching new and classic stuff. And with that, let's begin Recreating Impact, Recreating SINDEL.
SINDEL.
Now, if any of you are like me and you love your classic fighting games, then I'm pretty sure you may have dabbled in a bit of classic Mortal Kombat in the past. My first exposure to Mortal Kombat was Mortal Kombat Trilogy. SINDEL stood out to me right away at first glance because of her design. SINDEL was portrayed by Lea Montelongo. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And you can tell that this person definitely had a fun job capturing this character. So, big credit to her and the team for bringing SINDEL back to life early on in the day. Now, SINDEL herself, when it comes to her backstory, she appears in the game as a villain, but that's only due to the brainwashing that was given to her by Shao Kahn, who was the villain of MK2, the villain behind the scenes of MK1, and of course the returning villain of Mortal Kombat 3. So, let's go over SINDEL's backstory really quick. Before the events of Mortal Kombat, SINDEL was the Queen of Edenia, and Edenia in the Mortal Kombat universe is loosely based around the Garden of Eden, which is from the Bible stories. So, she ruled alongside her husband, King Jared. They had a very peaceful world, and they even had a daughter, who, in the MK games, is Kitana. So everyone in the realm of Edenia lived peacefully under King Jared and Queen SINDEL's rule.
Then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
Sorry, I had to do that, it was too perfect. But in all seriousness, what actually happened is that the invasion of Shao Kahn into Edenia was because he had won 10 consecutive Mortal Kombat tournaments. Now the Mortal Kombat tournaments typically go on for about 500 years. Yeah, I know, that's a long ass time. But to someone like Shao Kahn, who's lived for many centuries, for him, waiting 500 years is like waiting for your dinner to heat up in the microwave. He's happy to wait.
Time to heat up my lunch in the old Clarkson.
But anyway, so after 500 years of battling Edenia for their realm, Edenia unfortunately lost the Mortal Kombat tournament. This of course gave Shao Kahn the green light to legally invade. Man, the Elder Gods have some fucked up rules. And he took over the realm, merging it with Outworld. However, in doing so, King Jared tried to fight back. He of course was no match for Shao Kahn, and unfortunately after his death, Shao Kahn actually wanted to take SINDEL as his wife and Kitana as his daughter. SINDEL knew of the atrocities that Shao Kahn was capable of, and she also knew that because she lives for thousands of years, because Edenians live for a long damn time, she couldn't suffer that long. She didn't want to, nor did she want her daughter to suffer that as well. But SINDEL took it upon herself to use her life force and committed suicide to create a barrier between Outworld and Earthrealm, because she knew that Earthrealm would be Shao Kahn's next target. However, in doing so, Shao Kahn knew that eventually she would do something like this, so he had a contingency plan. When she killed herself, he used his soul magic to imprison her spirit so that she wouldn't pass on to the afterlife. He knew that he would need her eventually later on. And that later on eventually came in Mortal Kombat 3 after Liu Kang defeated him in Mortal Kombat 2. So here's the setup. Shao Kahn, through a combination of being a sore loser and being very impatient, he wasn't going to obey the rules of Mortal Kombat this time. After already losing twice, he'd had enough. So he resurrects SINDEL to make her his general queen to invade Earthrealm. Kitana is not at his side this time, so Sindel, under his brainwashed influence, is also out to kill her. With no Mortal Kombat tournament nor barrier holding him back, and having a badass general at his side, Shao Kahn was now ready to invade Earthrealm. Thus begins Mortal Kombat 3. Despite being brainwashed to eliminate all of Shao Kahn's obstacles, and thankfully she fucking doesn't, Sindel, no matter who wins the tournament— oh wait, MK3 doesn't have a tournament. After the catastrophe ends, Sindel does return to her regal, benevolent self. Thanks to Shao Kahn's influence being completely severed, she can once again be with her daughter Kitana, and they return to Edenia together. And the best part about this, Sindel is no longer an evil badass, she's just a badass. So she continues to rule Edenia, even though it will never be the same as it once was before. In a lot of Sindel's endings, she really does all she can to hold her realm together, as well as her connection with her daughter. Even in hard times where, at some point, Kitana herself falls under the influence of brainwashing when Onaga comes into the picture. And I do love the actions that she takes within her story in order to keep her family and Earthrealm safe. There's even one ending in Mortal Kombat Armageddon. Despite that game not being very well received, Sindel's ending is one of the best endings, as she becomes a god and she uses her godly power to resurrect her dead husband, and they rule Edenia together as a family once again. She even has a cool ending in Mortal Kombat 9. After she beats Shao Kahn, with the power that she has, she's able to sever the connection from Earthrealm to Edenia, and she actually does manage to bring that realm back to its former glory. And she also becomes a new leader for a lot of the races in Outworld, Tarkatans, Shokan, etc. Oh, and even the Centaurs. So yeah, she still remains very benevolent and very kind to everyone else. So despite some of the changes in MK9's main story, a lot of the core of Sindel's character remained intact. Except, like I said before, instead of being an evil badass, she's just a badass. Wow, and I said I was meant to briefly cover her backstory. I ended up taking the longest with this out of all of my Impact videos. But Sindel's backstory is just that damn cool. So anyway, let's quickly talk about her iconic moves. Now, I'm pretty sure you would have seen from the previous clips that a lot of what Sindel is known for is her long hair and her scream. The Banshee Scream was good for stunning the opponent to start up a combo, and her hair whip attacks were good as a long-range grapple. So, she could use her Banshee Scream close range, and the long hair was for, well, long range. She could also play mid-range in certain games with her Naginata, mainly the 3D era games. So yeah, a deadly woman with a deadly toolset. She also had a few projectiles, and in certain games she could float or fly, because apparently Edenians can do that too. Her hair whip attack is one of the most iconic moves, and only in one game did she not have it. Possibly to not break the game at certain points. But anyway, that was very iconic for her, as well as her Banshee Scream. So yeah, the Banshee is like another spirit that sort of resides inside Sindel, and she uses that scream. As you can imagine, it's very ear-piercing, that's why it stuns the opponent, but it's apparently also so powerful that it can literally scream the skin off an opponent, and as you saw before, she could suspend them mid-air. And in some games, she could even turn her scream into like air blades, so she could literally slice through the opponent. That is really damn cool. Combine that with her huge combos and how she could juggle opponents in certain games, that made her one hell of a threat. Now, there's not much I can really say about Sindel's moves because they kinda spoke for themselves throughout all the clips you watched about me gushing over her backstory. But anyway, classic Sindel. She is, well, a classic, and she's about as classic as you can get. And not only that, but she's downright inspirational. With a lot of the shit that she's gone through, how she overcame it, and how she holds her family and her realms together, that definitely does make Sindel one hell of an icon throughout the Mortal Kombat, be it modern day, or the classics. She's just that damn cool.
Gotcha, bitch!
SINDEL.
I have been dreading getting to this point. I was hoping that talking about classic SINDEL would calm me down for talking about the new MK11 SINDEL. Unfortunately, all it's made me do is make me hate this new SINDEL even more. Now, if you've been on the internet for as long as I have, in this big booming era of fighting games, then I'm pretty sure you will already be aware of the reception that this new SINDEL got. She came out in October last year. I didn't download her until a couple of days before the quarantine. And yeah, I already hate myself for downloading this character. She is just that friggin' bad. Now, unlike the other characters where a little was changed but a lot was retained, well, if you're one of those people that likes the gameplay of characters, then you're gonna be alright with SINDEL. She is one of the more positively received characters in terms of the gameplay, with how much opportunity she has to keep the opponent juggled, as well as having some safe in and out moves, as well as her Banshee Scream and all of her other iconic moves, including her Quan Dao. That makes her pretty cool. Unfortunately, underneath that whole layer is a complete bitch. Alright, look. There's nothing wrong with changing a character for the sake of changing them. But the change has to make sense. And the worst part about this is that NetherRealm's writers, or, well, I will say the community managers, it was more on their part, on part of the writers, what they said on behalf of the writing direction staff, whatever the hell you call them, not only was it bad, but when you take into account the continuing timeline of the main timeline, that is, going from the rebooted Mortal Kombat up to this point, it does not make sense. Here, just listen to this part from the Combat Cast.
What do you want to say about SINDEL as a character?
Well, she's from MK3. She is the Queen of Edenia, who betrayed King Jared to side with Shao Kahn.
Okay.
Because she wanted power and the status to be the Empress.
Right.
And that is actually new information. Previously, it was thought that she genuinely loved Jared and that she was mind controlled to turn evil. And in this game, we're actually exploring that that is not the case. She is every bit as evil as Shao Kahn, and they are a genuine, actual couple. And it is a very exciting piece of story information.
So it's a new path for the Queen.
Yes, and this is not some kind of shenanigan. This is the real lore, and it's a pretty big for SINDEL. It's a very new interpretation of her personality, and
That's exciting.
there's a couple reasons that I'm really excited for it.
Okay, now we're getting to the part that I really hate.
Okay.
The first is, there was always, in my opinion, a disconnect between the way she looked and played and acted in gameplay and the lore. Like, you look at MK Deception, and she's monstrous looking, she has the cool gothic makeup, the scream, all the weird powers. She's clearly an evil character.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Clearly an evil character.
And just when you thought it couldn't get any more ridiculous, it does. Listen to this.
Right.
But in the lore, she's this loving mother who's super benevolent and is like this just wonderful person. And
Sure.
it didn't really match, and now I think it totally does. She's never been more of like the sinister, sorceress kind of witchy powers, and she's all in on being evil as well. And then the second thing I think is interesting is it really adds to the agency of her as a character. She now is her own person who's in control of her actions. This is not mind control or manipulation. She is very strong, very powerful. She's pretty much Shao Kahn's peer, and I think that's a really rad concept to see. Very Lady Macbeth.
Now, this is a change that is not only really dumb, but it's also extremely poisonous. Basically, what they're saying is, she looked evil in the last game, therefore she should actually be evil. And you can actually see that in her design. you'll notice that the big difference between her and the other girls in this game is that SINDEL is really the only one that is sexualized. With her big tits, the visibility on her ass from some of her costumes, the way she flirts with other characters, and the fact that she acts like a complete bitch. And that right there is just... that's bad characterization. It actually is. If she was like this from the start, I wouldn't have a problem with it, because, you know, Shao Kahn was like that from the start. He's a dick. He's an evil emperor. But SINDEL wasn't. And in MK9, she was still the same kind, tortured mother that Shao Kahn enslaved. And that same person was also present in MKX, except she was a revenant. She was dead and resurrected again. But now in this game, so here's what they changed. As you would have seen in the first part of the video, SINDEL, through committing suicide, used her life force in order to protect Earthrealm, because again, that was going to be Shao Kahn's next target. So to make sure no one else suffered the same atrocities that she did, she would end her life in order to protect the lives of others across the realms. But here's another change. In MK11, apparently it wasn't suicide, because as you heard them say, she enjoys her privileged position, this new cunt version of her. And apparently she was killed by Quan Chi. Which begs the question, if that was the case, why would he need to resurrect her again? And if she was killed by someone else within their own circle, and it wasn't brainwashing, does that mean it was some elaborate scheme by both her and Quan Chi? Was she just really good at lying to everyone? And I know what you're thinking. It's a new timeline, it doesn't matter. But no, remember what I said before. There is one continuing main timeline. And you need to stay consistent with that. Now, I know a lot of fighting games have this problem, but with Mortal Kombat, it's only become more apparent and more stupid. And SINDEL is the line in the sand for me. I refuse to go over it. So going back to what that person said about how she looks evil, therefore she should be evil. Not only was that a very dumb thing to say, but recently a new character came out that not only challenged that, but he was also received really damn well. Can you guess who that character was? Fakumram. The whole design aspect of him, they only had one thing in mind. He's a dude where you take one look at him and you turn the other way. Originally we all thought he was some evil experimental giant. But no, that's not the case. He may look like a mean motherfucker, who looks like he enjoys killing people, but he's not. Now, I originally did say quite a while ago that he would be a good MK character. Yeah, I don't want him in MK anymore. Chances are they change his backstory to him being evil just because he looks mean as. Yeah, I'm sorry, I have to end it there. For those of you who stuck out with me in my Recreating Impact series, thank you so much for joining me along this little journey of mine on exploring characters that were brought into the modern era from their classic era. But yeah, I'm going to be taking a break from this series for quite a while because I may make a part 4, but I'm not going to do it for quite some time. SINDEL is just a complete giant bag of no. I'm just grateful that I still have the classic games on my PlayStation 2. But this one? Yeah, I only installed her for this video. Now I'm gonna uninstall her. I may have to completely delete the application of Mortal Kombat 11 off my PlayStation to do so. But if it means I get rid of SINDEL, it'll be worth it. Well, at least now this video's finished. Took a long ass time, and if you can't tell by my disdain for SINDEL and my lack of elaborating on the changes to her, you can understand why it took a long ass time. Thanks again, everyone. This has been Recreating Impact, Ruining SINDEL. See you later.